go. 1, 2, 3, 4. everybody. My name is Dave Story. I'm the bass professor at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. I'm just giving you a couple of really short, quick tips here on this required bass etude for the WSMA State Honors Jazz Ensemble. So it's kind of a curious piece. It takes you through a bunch of different styles. The chord changes are, they're not exactly like most standard song chord changes. They're not like not standard, but they're not exactly straight ahead chord changes like you would get on most jazz standard tunes. So it's a little bit ambiguous and a little bit challenging. So a couple of things right off the bat. Number one is that especially when you're making an audition video, something like that, think about big picture things. So what does a bass player basically need to do, or what is good on any audition? So big tone, like a great sound from your instrument, whether that be electric guitar or bass guitar, or the acoustic bass, and you want to play with a big tone, great time, and you also want to play really in tune. So the best that you're able to, and that's always a challenge, is playing in tune on this instrument. And it's its own technical issues that probably need a lot of addressing outside of a short video. But let's focus on probably some of the pertinent aspects. So big tone on any of the instruments. Guitar, bass guitar, it isn't that it's any different, honestly. Make sure you're pitching through the string. Really kind of go right through the string as best you're able to. Where you're doing it on the bass guitar makes a lot of difference. If you're going to play closer to the bridge, it gets a different tone. But I think on this style, a lot of times I would play closer to the pickups in the middle, or even closer to the fingerboard if you want to get more of the acoustic bass kind of sound. So, but make sure you strike all the way through the string instead of just sort of gently raking over the top of the string. Roll right on through the string, get that whole string to vibrate, and get that whole sound coming out of the instrument. On upright bass, you just want to lay into it. I like, on a lot of basic walking technique, I like to put a lot of finger meat on that string, drop my shoulder right on through the string, and really pull. Make sure I have a good percussive snap and get as much sound out of the instrument. So big tone as best as you're able to. Time, just a couple of things about time. Excuse me, getting over a cold. One, practice this sucker with a metronome a lot. Metronome on all 4 beats, great. Especially practice with a metronome pertinent to the style. So if it's swing, put the metronome on just beats 2 and 4. So cut out those other 2 beats and just play with it on 2 and 4. So it sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Click, 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 so on and so forth. So you have those clicks where you would usually get the hi-hat to close on the drum kit, or the drummer striking the ride cymbal. So you get that feeling of it. That's really, really good. Even better than that, I think, is if you were to play with an active human drummer. That would be awesome if you could get together with another musician that you know. If you can't, there's an app on both Android and Apple. It's called Drum Genius. It's like a little green-headed Martian-looking guy. It's probably the best app that you can buy. You can even get a couple of tracks, free preview tracks to download for like the intro free version. But if you want to pay $8 for probably the most useful musical app that I've ever seen in my life, pay for it. It's worth it. And to play along with that app with drum styles that fit the music styles that you're working on. So you want to work on your time, make sure it's super, super, super solid. Past that, left hand technique, probably can't do much in a short video to adjust that. A couple of things on the beginning. So I'm just going to hit some really quick pointers along the way and just jump to different spots in the music. In the beginning, I would really cut into the triplets, right? Triplet, triplet, triplet. I'm going to guess 96 is about here. But I want that undercurrent all the way through here, even if I'm playing just half notes. Triplet, triplet. Big tone. Keep the drummer in your ear. Really lay out a fat sound as best you're able to. So even on those eighth notes, you see like some of the second line has an eighth note figure, triplet. That's still tripletized, even though it's not written out as a triplet in there. That's how I would interpret it in standard reading. At section A on the chart, it says walk in 4. The chord changes here are a little gnarly, to be honest with you. I mean, they're a little tricky, especially for like a high school reading kind of thing. What I would say is if you're not comfortable improvising, I would just go after number one. A bass player's job is to play roots on the downbeat of a new chord. So if you're not comfortable improvising a new bass line, playing roots through here would actually sound pretty good. So just G, G, D flat. That would get a lot of mileage out of it. Past that, it's actually a little bit more nuanced. The big ticket items that you always want to be aware of. The bass player should be aware of the third and the seventh of the chord. But in here, it's a little tricky to kind of voice lead from one chord to the next fluidly because the chord changes are changing. Sometimes they're jumping up by a fourth or a fifth or moving down by a step. It's a little bit less predictable than in some other harmonic passage work. So it's tricky to find something that really has a good flow to it. But roots, a little bit of root to third or root to fifth, make sure you have the right quality of the third, whether it's a major or minor third, and just stay with good tone, good time, and play powerfully. So in the beginning, if I did something, 2 Gs, 2 D flats, now A to C sharp because it leads to D, F sharp here, 2 G flats would be great, F, A, E flat leads to D really nice, stuff like that. Excuse me. Getting over a cold, sorry about that. So letter B, the switch to Latin, really click into that straight eighth note. Taka, 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 taka. Hear what the transitions are in the drum set. When the drum set is changing its style, what parts of the drum set are being played? And what does that mean for you as a bass player? So here, so much of this stuff is eighth notes that are off the beat and really kind of zeroing in on that subdivision, feeling every single subdivision throughout your body. So you want to get right to where that beat is. Cha 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 cha. Really feel those off beats. Every time I'm playing off the beat, I want to leverage where the beat is. Just like in any particular situation, like you're playing in a big band or in any band, and the drummer sets you up. They might set up a figure. You're playing through, and the band's going on, and the drummer's playing through. Da da da, bam. So you come in on the and a 3, drummer's basically setting you up by hitting 1 or 3. Maybe it's a snare hit or a kick drum hit. So you want to feel that on that beat so you can leverage your offbeat hits off of it. So letter B, that Latin style, especially when you get to like the second line of it, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 2. So I'm feeling something happening on those beats. Ba, 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 beep, ba. This inner subdivision. One of the great pieces of advice that another really stellar bass player gave to me at one point in time is like, you don't have a drummer with you, just put the drummer inside your head. Memorize what the sound of that drum set is like. Keep all of that information inside your ear and keep it going while you're making music. So count, even if you have trouble with this spot, I have a different video where I'm playing all the way through it. Listen to that a bunch of times. Write in the counts over the top of this. Maybe just clap it and count it at the same time until that's easy, and then come back and play it on the bass. Make it easier on yourself to know what you want to sound like. Let me jump down to letter E, a jazz waltz here. The second line down, it says walk in 3. Walk in 3 is kind of a funny concept. The reality is that if you listen across the records, there aren't a lot of players that actually walk in 3 on all 3 beats. It's not that it's not done, it's just that it's more common to have what's called a broken 3. I don't honestly know what they would want to expect from the audition. But let me just demonstrate. So walking on all three beats is less common. So here's walking on all three beats. Which kind of sounds, it has its own peculiar sound. There's nothing wrong with it. Here's a broken three, which sometimes we'll have all three beats and sometimes we'll gloss over. Sometimes it will play longs and shorts. Sometimes it will play twos against threes. That's a little bit more common in the recorded history of the bass. A 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was a little bit too much, probably too busy than what I would play in most situations anyways. But suffice to say, I think there's a healthy balance there of playing enough quarter notes, but still trying to sound like you're not on any quarter note walking style, not to just play dead quarter notes over and over, but to play quarter notes that have a rhythmic feeling that's similar to what the ride cymbal is doing. Not day, day, ga day, day, ga day, but something that has a little bit of skip energy to it. Do, di, de, de, ga do, de, ga do, do. Something that has a playfulness and a skipping energy that's moving forward. So you never want to obscure the beat. The beat is super important. Remember, time is of the utmost importance. You don't want to get too busy to the point where it's just like makes a mess of things. But you don't want to just play quarter notes that sound dead or ambiguous. They have to have the hierarchy of the beat structure, but they also have to have that underlying feeling of I'm moving the band, I'm moving the rhythm section, I'm playing through the feeling of swing or whatever the style is at the moment. So you try to find that happy medium here, and I'll try to demonstrate that again. Stuff like that. So listen across great recordings, Ray Brown. Can't listen to enough of Ray Brown. Sort of the modern offspring of Ray Brown, Christian McBride, one of the most brilliant bass players who's ever played the instrument. You can't go wrong with either of those guys. There's so many great bass players, but listen to players who play a wide variety of styles, and those two guys certainly jump out as being players that I would spend much of my life listening to. At G, of course, move to that straight eighth note inside the ballad feel. So read the ink. That line there is really tricky, I think, at 83. That's a huge leap to do, especially on electric bass where you don't have a lot of physical feeling. Just work on that shift to get up to that A flat and the B flat on the top. Upright bass players got to learn to balance that instrument, especially if you're standing. I would take the C on the D string and then come right over the top. So 4 on the C, 1 on the A flat, thumb, so on and so forth. Letter H. Again, if you're getting 2 chords per bar, chase after the roots on the downbeats. And this one has a little bit more potential for voice leading. So for instance, if you're playing root third, that seems to work out. So what I mean by that, root third, G, B flat, because it's the minor third, C, E, F, A flat, B flat. Those sort of create a longer shape and they link together, and it gives you the root on the downbeat, the third on the beat 2, and it creates a longer kind of chain of notes that move in the right direction. That's sort of basic principles of walking bass line. Some of the other chords, if you're having a hard time figuring out, maybe there's a band director or your jazz instructor can tell you, well, here's the scale that goes along with that chord, or here's the chord tones. There's plenty of resources on the internet for sure that could help you out, and some apps that could help you out along the way too. But most important here, play with really solid swinging time feel. Even though I'm thinking that the metronome is still pretty slow here because you're coming from this ballad tempo, but now you're walking in 4. It's really hard to keep a walking tempo in 4, or the slower you get, time starts to play tricks on you. So really get into that internal subdivision. Keep that drummer inside your head. 2, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. So you can hear me. A lot of times I'm enunciating. I'm sort of like singing along to what I would hear if I'm playing next to a drummer and trying to keep that in my ear. That'll keep you busy. There's lots of interesting things on the chord chart. So I would work on it, time, big tone, and of course make sure you can play in tune, because you have to create that stable intonation for the rest of the group.